So how much does the average woman spend on shoes during her lifetime? It's a huge 33,000.
Yes, the average British woman shells out a staggering £33,000 on footwear during their lifetimes, buying at least 8 pairs every year. Of the 44 pairs of shoes owned by the average woman, there are 8 pairs of boots, 9 pairs of trainers, 12 pairs of flat shoes and 15 pairs of high heels. Ooh. That's the only response I could think of to those statistics. But first, addicted to shopping. Now, we all know that a little retail therapy gives us a boost when we're feeling down, but what happens if a treat now and then takes over your life? Jo from Dunstable knows exactly how this feels. For her, buying new clothes made her feel good about herself and, in turn, made her feel more confident. At the time, she ran her own hairdressing business and says she felt constant pressure to look good. We'll be talking to psychotherapist Rachel Morris about advice and how to avoid turning an everyday habit like shopping into an addiction in a minute. But first, Jo, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us just a bit about how it started. At what point it had become an addiction and how you knew it was an addiction.
I felt that the addiction started possibly because I needed to look good for the hairdressing. I'd had some grief earlier on, and I felt that I needed to compensate for feeling good through that and working through it.
Okay, so you've been through some grief.
Yes.
And so, as you say, this is a way of making you feel good about yourself. And I think am I right in saying that both your sons had joined the army? Is that right?
Yes, they had. Yes, yes. And it linked on to my brother. My brother was killed in a road accident when I was 12, and he was also in the army. And I associated the boys joining up by flashbacks of his accident. And to get me through that, I bought clothes.
So was it to distract you from that, or was it purely because it just put you in a better mood?
A bit of both, really. I think it was a comfort thing for me because I could buy things that associated, like green combats were associated with the army, and they make me feel better about the boys being there. But it was also making me feel that I was with them if I wore that. It was totally took over everything, every emotion.
Did it? So tell us about some of the extremes then, if you don't mind, Jo.
50 pairs of jeans.
Okay, that's a lot.
120 pairs of shoes. 5 wardrobes. Putting clothes in my son's wardrobes and hiding things that I bought as well.
Really? A few
Yes.
jaws have hit floors behind you during that. Are you, over how long a time was this? When you say you built up 5 wardrobes worth of clothes, what sort of time span?
In a space of about 8 years, and that's hiding stuff in sheds and all sorts. So I could have filled a few bedrooms quite easily.
Who are you hiding it from?
My husband, my boys, everybody really, friends. And I didn't realise the friends that I'd actually got, or the sport I got around me, until I had to deal with it.
Really? Well, now, let's just talk about this being an addiction, because it shares... People might think that that's a dramatic turn of phrase or may not recognise it as an addiction, but it is, isn't it? And it shares a lot of characteristics with other addictions.
Yes, definitely.
If we take drug dependency or alcohol dependency, people will often hide that sort of addiction, as you have just described.
Yes.
What else would you say it had in common with other forms of addiction?
It's like somebody having a great big cream cake put in front of you and you've got to eat it. Having a thirst you've got to quench there and then. And
then eat another.
Yes, and keep going and going and going. Yes, you have to do it, you know, and it's... the only way I can explain it is it's like a drug addict that has to keep feeding something to the point that you've got to stop, you know.
And I know that when reports have looked into this, what they've said, what the psychologists have said, is that you're pursuing, with each purchase, you're kind of pursuing a high. Yes. And you get a brief high, as somebody would from a particular drug. You get a brief high, then you go into a lull, so you need to buy something. So would you then... You go into a lull, you get a bit down, you buy a pair of shoes, and instantly you get an actual adrenaline rush.
Definitely. There's nothing better than looking in that bag and seeing what you've got. You know, that pair of shoes that you want, and you get home and you've got a pair of the same, but it's those shoes in that bag, you know.
So Yasmin?
You said your friends helped you kind of confront the problem?
Yes, yes. Friends,
Did you listen to them, or did
not at first, no. I thought they were raving lunatics. I knew what I was doing, but
But
now
you must
I can
have
see.
been in debt by this time.
I was cutting corners at home, and
Credit cards?
Yeah, credit cards, debit cards. You know, right up to sort of like leaving pounds in my bank account, not sort of, and I just, any time I could, I would just spend. If I've got half an hour to spend, I would be in that shop and buying something.
What I find interesting about this addiction is that most other addictions, it's gone once you've taken it, so to speak. You know, like if you drink, that booze is gone the next day, so it's quite easy to erase, you know, to pretend it didn't happen or to deny for a while. But with shopping, you've got it all, you're surrounded by it.
Not if you hide it.
No, if you put it in a shed.
So you were literally, was that part of it where you literally had to, you'd feel bad about having it all around you, so you would hide it for yourself as well as to hide it from your family?
And the receipts really don't count. They're at the bottom of the bag.
And they're really hidden.
Yes.
Right.
So how would you feel when you went to the shed and you saw all of these jeans and that stacks up? Would you...
I didn't feel that bad, actually. They were there for when everybody's gone out, and I can have a look then, can't I? Bring them in.
Would you, like, put them on when what would you do with them? Because you couldn't obviously wear that much stuff.
No, I know. When people the house was empty, I would bring bits in and try it on. Some of it didn't even fit me. I just liked it in the shop, you know. But some of it I would keep indoors, and I'd push a little bit more up, or it'd go in the boys' wardrobe. But now I tend to think I don't really understand why I overtook the shed, the summer house, and everything else.
Let me bring our psychotherapist Rachel in. Hello there, Rachel. Good morning to you. Why, in your experience, why do people do this? Why do they become addicted?
I think it is an addiction, exactly as you said, and it forms exactly the same pattern as all addictions. And I know Jo won't mind me saying this, but this is a fairly new... she's very early in recovery, and it's very new. And actually, to understand why you do the things you do takes quite a... You know, it takes some reflection, it takes some analysis, maybe some therapeutic counselling support. But most addictions are basically something you do because you don't want to feel something. It's about replacing a feeling.
Yeah.
Every time Jo or anybody shops or gets a hit or buys a drink or buys a bottle or whatever it is, it makes you feel something other than the thing that you would be feeling if you didn't do the thing. And that's usually grief, despair, low self-esteem, self-repulsion, and all addiction just plays into that. So if I feel bad about myself and buying a pair of shoes makes me feel good for 5 minutes, after that I look at the pair of shoes, I realise that it's just cost me another 50 quid. Now I feel sick with myself, on top of the bad feeling I had about myself before. Now I've got twice as many bad feelings to spend on, and it just keeps mounting.
But here's the thing, experts have said that there's no real treatment for this. So if you have an addiction to alcohol or you have an addiction to drugs, you have to give them up altogether. So you go to AA or NA and you stop for life. You can't stop shopping.
Yeah, you can,
so
actually. It's the same as... Well, no, you can't stop buying things, but you can stop a shopping frenzy. It's very similar to addiction to food. You can't stop eating just because you're a bulimic or an anorexic. Or, obviously, anorexic, you have to keep eating. The point is to decide where your line is. What does abstinence mean for you? Most shoppers, shopping addiction people, same as eating addiction, will know that there is a line over which they cross. It takes a while in therapy to recognise where that line is. But there's a difference from going into Sainsbury's or whatever and spending 25 quid on your shopping for food that week and buying a pair of shoes that cost more than you can afford. The line is basically, did it make you feel bad? If it did, then you know you crossed the line.
Jo, tell us just a bit more about the kind of effect that it had on your family. Did you find, again, drawing the comparison with other forms of addiction, did you find that you were, other than simply hiding the clothes, were there other ways in which you lied? Either to hide what you were doing or perhaps to get some money together?
Yeah, I did. I mean, my family was more or less falling apart because I used to cut corners at home instead of spending everything I could do at home. And I think I realised at a point that I had to pull everything together.
What did your friends say that triggered that?
Why haven't you worn that top again that you bought last week?
Oh,
why do you need to buy a new top every time? Why can't people see you in the same top twice?
We have Mel on the line, who herself, I think, believes she's an addict as well.